Okay, so the end of this book doesn't actually have chapters, so I'm probably just gonna title it like post-book prelude, whatever. This is the letters and the end of the book. Dear Mr. McBride, Dear Matt, I hope you don't mind me calling you that. You always said I could, but I could never tell if that was just you being friendly. I know I never felt comfortable doing it, and even now, after all that's happened, I can only do it on paper. In the package that accompanies this letter, you'll find everything I have compiled about the bloodless murders and about Marie Catherine Hale. Pages and pages chronicling the interviews and our time together. I took it down just like you said to, and I did my best to tell it like she would have wanted. I hope that's all right that I turn it over to you now. Take it and run. Make what you can of it. I know that's what I was supposed to do, to sift through it all and find the truth, but I guess I don't have the heart for it anymore. The story I wrote isn't the story you figured on, and after you finish reading it, I'm sure you'll be disappointed. I'm sorry about that, and I don't want you to think that I'm not grateful for all your advice or that I wasn't listening. You're a great reporter, Mr. McBride, and a better mentor than I could have ever hoped to find in Black Deer Falls or anywhere. Last summer, when I was delivering papers for you, I took your diploma down off the wall, and the nail got stuck. I scratched the hell out of the paint behind it, so I'm sorry about that too. I just wanted to get a better look at it. The ivory paper and the stark black lettering. The school seal from the University of Pittsburgh. I imagined it was my name on it instead of yours. I really did want to know what brought you out here to us from there, but I should have asked sooner. I guess I never was much of a journalist. By the time you get this package, I'll be headed out of town. I got a letter from Marie, you see, and it contained a sort of last request. She'd carefully timed the sending of it, and I like to imagine the determined look on her face when she wrote it, and how she must have hidden her nerves, worrying about whether it would reach me or be intercepted by my mom or dad, or even picked off by a prison guard looking to make a buck by selling it to the national papers. I kept the original for myself, but this is what she wrote. Dear Michael, I'm writing to you now to ask you what I couldn't ask then, because I lack the nerve, and because I was afraid you would say no. So I waited until it's almost too late, hoping that will mean you won't. Do you remember the story of Mercy Brown? Do you remember what they did to her? Those first days, I bet you can't read that shorthand. Your pen was shaking so bad. I imagine you looking back on those papers and seeing nothing but wavy lines. But I know you were listening, and I know this is a lot to ask, but I don't want to come back, so I need your help. I know you remember what to do. So I'm asking if you ever cared about me like I cared about you. I'm sorry, Michael. I want you to know that I'm not the same as I was then. But it doesn't matter, because I did what I did. My confession was for who I used to be. Do you believe that? That I could change? I hope you do. And I hope that you believe me. XL Marie. Once upon a time there was a girl named Mercy Brown, who they thought was a vampire, and whose grave they unearthed, whose head they severed, and whose heart they burned to ashes upon a stone. Of course I remember that, and I know what it is that Marie wants me to do. By the time you read this, it'll be too late to stop us. We'll already be there. The cemetery of Nebraska State Penitentiary is located in southwest Lincoln, on a slowly stooping hill that rises above the prison grounds. Grasshopper Hill, they call it, on account of the locust in summer. The main prison is a ways away, and there are still lookout towers, and even at night, guards will be making their rounds. We'll be lucky if we don't get shot. Funny, my mother always thought that journalism was the safer choice. She was never wild about my dad trying to get me to follow in his footsteps. Before the murder, she used to ask me about it at least once a month. Now I doubt that he'll ever ask me again. I know this sounds like a goodbye letter, but it isn't. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know she asked me to do it, so I have to try. I guess I'll decide when I get there. So I guess we both have some decisions to make. I trust you to decide what to do with this story. It was never really my story anyway. You know, before Marie left, I asked her why it was so important that the killer not be her stepfather. I didn't understand why she wouldn't just take the out and lay it all on him. Save herself. Then the paper started to run stories about him being the killer and them being on the run. "They're saying I was abused," she said. "They're saying I was raped, I was molded, I was a victim." She was angry, and angry at me because I couldn't see how that was worse. But I think the whole reason that Marie wanted to confess was so she would have the final say. Marie would not be defined, not by the reporters, not by the blood drinker or Nathaniel Cody, not by me. If the articles are to be believed, she didn't have any last words at her execution, and she didn't pray unless she count the priest to go ahead if it makes you feel better. Marie Catherine Hale, tough to the end. I'm going to miss her voice. I'm going to miss her. I suppose you'll think that's strange, but it's the truth. Tell the truth and shame the devil. When I started, that seemed like an easy enough thing. Find out what really happened, Michael, because the truth is the truth. Except it isn't it? Facts maybe, but the truth is our own. It's tied up with belief, and belief is harder to hold down. I want to thank you for everything, Matt, and if something goes wrong at the cemetery, I hope you'll give this to my parents and let them read it, so maybe they'll understand. Yours truly, Michael Jensen. Sorry. May 9th, 1959. When I asked Percy to drive me down to Lincoln, he didn't seem surprised. He just snuck out early and picked me up as if we'd done it 100 times. I guess I don't have to ask why, he said when I got in. I guess I've known for a while. But she was a killer, right? Yeah, I said. She was a killer, but that's not all she was. We drove out of town down Main Street, watching lights turn as the shops opened up. The sidewalk still dark and empty. You know, I do love this place, I said. Just because I think I might wind up somewhere else, it doesn't mean I don't. It doesn't mean it isn't home. Percy looked at me. Some people say the Valentines aren't the cleverest of people, but I find them downright intuitive. Yeah, he said and smiled. I know. Hours later, outside the car window, a whole lot of nothing breezes past as Percy carefully drives the byways. We've crossed well into eastern Nebraska and the springtime remnants of tall grass prairies. As I stare into them, the pale tops rustle in the wind and in my mind. I see Stephen Hill running for his life as the grasses snarl around his legs. In my mind, the grass is green, high summer grass to his waist, and behind him, the dark shapes of Marie and the blood drinker dart through it like fish through underwater weeds. I can almost hear his panicked breathing. I can almost hear her laughing. Only that isn't the way it happened. Stephen Hill was killed far away, in a regular flat field next to a service station between Grand Junction and Mason City, Iowa. Can you reach back and grab my pop's atlas? Percy said. I think our next turn is coming up. I reached back for the atlas, which was really not an atlas, but a collection of individual maps secured with a tie, and unfolded the map of Nebraska. About how long, he asked. 10 miles to the turn. We should be there before dark. We drive past the cemetery just before sunset, when it's still light enough to see the rows of white grave markers and crosses. We park down the road and wait until the sun goes down. We wait until after the prison will have called lights out. You shouldn't come with me, I say. This isn't just like ditching class or swiping beers from Mo. Come this far, haven't I? Can't very well let you go the rest of the way alone. We get out of the car and he opens the trunk. There are things inside we need. Shovels, a sharpened hatchet. They all feel cold in my hands. The moon is out, and the night is brighter than I would like. I tell Percy to button his jacket over his white shirt. We go quick and quiet along the dirt road until we reach the edge of the cemetery. Ahead in the blackness, I can just make out the ghostly shapes of the crosses in row after neat row. Percy touches the fence and wraps his hand around the strand of barbed wire hammered into the old wood post. Stay low, I say. Stay covered. Not much cover to be had. I'm sorry about this, Percy. I don't know why you're doing this, he said. I don't believe you're really going to do it. I tighten my grip on the hatchet. It takes some time to find our grave, stumbling around in the moonlight, sometimes on our hands and knees, and feeling our way across the ground for fresh dirt. But it takes even longer to dig her up. Percy helps, and we work side by side until our shovels strike something firm, of wood, and he looks at me before climbing out. This part I have to do alone. The top half of her casket is exposed. It's just a plain pine box, and above it in the grass, the small rectangular stone bears no name, only the date. I don't know if I have the nerve for this, if I can pry open the casket and look upon her face, if I can cut out her heart. I kneel down. She hasn't been in the ground long. I lean in close. Come back, Marie. I want you to come back. I wait. Against the wood, the hatchet in my hand shakes.